The idea of deductive method and inductive method, it is interesting because it was developed in particular in the ancient Greek society, and it is not strange that this idea was developed during the ancient Greek society, in particular in 5 and 4th century BC. In fact, the deductive method is, on the other hand, that specific type of logical method, therefore is a sort of deductive structure. Therefore, if I explain that 2 plus 2 is a specific type of result, therefore I can understand that 2 plus 2 is a specific type of result that could be, and it is, for example, 4. This is really interesting because the deductive method would like to consider a specific type of sentences, create, for example, on the other hand, in other words, also a specific type of sentences that create a specific type of connection between them to arrive a specific type of conclusion. In other words, the deductive method would like to consider the structure logic, the logical sentences in relation with reality. For example, I see that it's raining and I explain now it's raining to explain another type of sentence, create a connection between the idea of raining with another type of argument to arrive a specific type of consequence in relation with the argument. Therefore, for example, with this type of sentences, now it's raining and I don't know, now there is no the sun, we can create, for example, another type of argument. Therefore, because there are because there is the bad time, the bad weather, and there are a lot of clouds, therefore now it's raining. Oh, in any case, could be the sun that we can see, but at the same time, on me there are a lot of clouds, and because there are these clouds, there is raining. This is specific type of knowledge that, for example, the same Socrates in the comedies of Aristophanes explained in front of, for example, his contemporaries. This is really interesting because, for example, the ancient Greek society, in particular the ancient Greek population, thought that it was raining because Zeus produced the raining, or at the same time there was the bad weather because Greek because Zeus and Poseidon produce this bad weather with a lot of difficulties to, for example, for the navigation. On the other hand, instead, Socrates to explain that Zeus is not so important in this relationship, but we have to consider a specific type of relation between cause and effects in relation with science. Therefore, if it's raining, it's because probably there are a lot of clouds on us. In that land where there are no clouds, there is no raining. Therefore, in that situation where there are a lot of clouds with a lot of causes that produce rainings, on the other hand, there is a specific type of an effect that is raining, and it's Zeus. It's not important in this argument. This is really interesting because the deductive method, therefore, would like to consider the reality as this reality is, but to create sentences in relation with the true or false of the reality. Therefore, now it's raining. If now it's raining, therefore this sentence is true. It's instead it's not raining. This sentence is false. On the other hand, the argument is a relationship between sentences to create a specific validity or invalidity of the argument. Therefore, the sentences are in relation only with true and false, in relation therefore with reality. If I explain something that is false, in reality is false. If I explain something that in relation with reality is true, is true. But the argument could be only valid or invalid in relation with the good logic of the sentences. On the other hand, the inductive method is, on the other hand, the idea that we can see the reality as our experience, and to create a specific type of rule in relation with what we can see. Therefore, if, for example, the reality explained with a sort of repetition, for example, of some experiences that we can see in the reality, therefore, could be a specific type of rule that create a connection with our experience. If I continue to see the same thing all days in the same hour, for example, could be a specific type of regularity that we can understand. For example, the idea of weather in relation with the idea of the earth, why during the night there is no sun, then instead during the afternoon there is the sun, or why there is for example there is a specific type of connection with I can see that ships when they leave the harbor, then in any case I cannot see that ships when they arrive in a specific point. This is really interesting because, for example, these arguments were in relationship with the idea of physics, the idea of eyes, the ideas, for example, that Euclides in ancient Greek society tried to create a connection between physics and, in this sense, how eyes can reflect the reality. This is really interesting because the ancient Greek, in any case, tried to create an inductive method, or better, yeah, an inductive method to think about reality. In any case, if we think about this, the difference and the connection between deductive and inductive method, in any case, we can create a connection of arguments in relation with these two methods because, on the other hand, the Greek society in general thought that only the gods produce something. The cause and effect were in relation with the idea of gods. In any case, Socrates in particular, and therefore, on the other hand, Plato, tried to create a specific type of causes between them to create a specific type of effect. And therefore, according to Plato, therefore, if exists a specific type of regularity, probably, and if exists a specific type of cause, we can understand that there is the math, and there is, for example, particular type of math that are part of math, for example, geometry, through when we can understand something. And therefore, the other Greek people, for example, the Greek people of the Hellenistic world, for example, Euclides, etc., try to understand and try to reason, try to think about, on the one hand, the idea of Plato in relation with potential idea that we can reflect in reality as a regular idea of reality. On the other hand, the idea of deduction method, for example, yeah, I can explain something as math, for example, 2 plus 2 is 4, or if I think that now it's raining, I have to prove that now it's raining, and I have to understand that now it's raining, and I have to understand also the causes because what now it's raining. But at the same time, when I would like to explain a sentence, I have to demonstrate, on the other hand, the argument in relation with the sentences that I explain. Therefore, I can create a sentence in relation with reality, but in the end, the argument would be invalid if I don't create a good structure between the sentences. Or I can create a fantasy argument that in the end, in the reality, doesn't exist. This is really important to explain the idea of Greeks in relation with deductive method and inductive method. On the other hand, in fact, there is the idea that the Homer poems, in particular, try to explain that the gods produce something. There is a sort of connection with an imaginary world, in particular, also with the historical period. This is very interesting. In fact, Homer, when trying to explain his poems, try to think about the stories that arrived to him, but on the other hand, these stories that arrive to him have had a specific type of basement in history. Indirectly, in fact, could be could be a War of Troy, and there were an important colonizations during the 12th century BC. before the period of Homer. In fact, Homer lived in the 8th century BC. Indirectly, Homer tried to create a specific type of physics and metaphysical idea without the deductive and inductive method to create an imaginary world between gods on the Mount Olympus, and on the other hand, between cause and effect that are not in connection with physics. But if we have to analyze these ideas that Homer produced, in any case, we can understand that have some causes. In this sense, for example, the movements of history, the movements of people that Homer tried to reflect in the idea of an imaginary world. This is very interesting because the same Plato, comprehending this, comprehending the idea of people, the idea of his contemporaries that they try to think as an imaginary world in relation with gods, try to criticize this system, try to create a specific type of debate based on the reality. And this is really interesting because Socrates, or the Socrates of Plato, it was that man that arrived into the agora, into the city state, to explain that what we can see or what we can think, it's not necessarily a cause of gods, but is a sort of connection between physics and facts that happen in reality. Therefore, we can analyze these facts and we can comprehend in our limits some things that happen with a sort of regularity, etc. This type of knowledge, this type of reason in the ancient Greek society could also be difficult in relation with the contemporaries of Socrates and Plato. In that situation where the ancient Greek society, it was really in relation with the idea of gods, and the idea that polis, city state, it was in relation with its specific type of god. If Socrates or another Greek arrived to explain, do you know that this cause is not produced by Zeus or Poseidon, but is produced by a specific type of physics idea or physics fact that produce something? It's not so simple everything to explain this. Probably between philosophers, but when philosophers, for example, arrive to explain this on the politicians or to the people in general, it wasn't so normal for the normal people to comprehend this type of arguments. In particular, because the Greek society it was in relation with the Homer literature and the idea of rituals, the idea of religion, that it was in the society. Greek people thought that each god it was in the things. Therefore, when arrived Socrates or Plato that explained that, do you know that that things happen not because gods but because physics, or because some rules in relation with maths, in relation with geometry, part of maths, etc. People didn't understand, or they didn't want to understand, or they thought that you wanted to criticize the god of a city. It wasn't so simple to explain that argument in that society. By and at the same time, we understand why in the ancient Greek was born the deductive and inductive method, also in relation with a lot of critics that happened against the philosophy. And this is why philosophy it was so criticized also during the ancient Greek society in that period when philosophy was born. Bye.